Welcome to Permission for Pleasure, where we empower women to create liberated empires, anchored in leadership harmony in service of your highest mind, body, soul wellness. I am your host, Amy Jones, and in today's episode, we're going to be connecting with registered dietitian Samantha Holmgren, who is going to help you learn how to reconnect with the pleasure of food. She teaches how mindful eating is going to help deepen your intuition and positively impact all parts of your life. Our guest has been featured in several media publications, and hopefully I don't butcher this, I've written it down. The Canadian Spondyloarthritis Association, the CSA. She's on the medical advisory board of the Canadian Spondyloarthritis Association, and she's also the president of the Arthritis Health Professionals Association. And she is stellar, and she, as you can tell, is very young and very seasoned already. I cannot wait to see where your career is going to take you, my dear. Samantha is so passionate about helping people reconnect to their pleasure and joy of eating. And I have full goosebumps as I'm speaking about this because this is very near and dear to my heart as well. I don't know if I'd shared this with you before, but I was bulimic for 7 years in my 20s. And so I have a love-hate relationship with food and, my body for that matter. So what you're doing is really important, and I know that you love seeing people move towards balance and wellness and intuitively doing this to help them reconnect with their body wisdom. So important, so powerful, so liberating. And I'm so honored to share this space with you. Thank you for coming here. Oh, welcome.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. And thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
My pleasure. So I'd love to start out a little bit kind of like where you were and where we're going. So I'd love for you to share, what inspired you to start specializing in helping people with chronic pain.
Absolutely. So this actually came about from my own health journey. When I was 23 was when I started as a dietitian. So it's been a decade now that I've been a dietitian, which is, time is weird. Let's just put it that way. And when I was about a year into being a dietitian, I started having joint pain. My knee swelled up to about twice its normal size, and I went through a diagnosis journey and ended up being diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. Things went okay for a couple of years. I was lucky. I went into a bit of a remission for a few years, which can happen with psoriatic arthritis. It goes through flares, and then it goes through periods of less activity. When I was 28 in 2018, I had several flares that got progressively worse and lasted longer. Ended up in December of that year missing more work than I was able to be at work because of the pain that I was in. Having to have a chair in the bathroom to sit down while I was brushing my teeth and getting ready in the morning and at night. It's pretty intense when you have that amount of pain where the only thing that you feel you can do is lie still and hope that it goes away. I was able to, first of all, I had a great medical team that was able to help me and find some medications that helped and worked for me. But I was also able to start unlocking this idea. And since then, I've been able to work with people and better articulate what that transformation was. But it was this idea that I didn't have to try to feel good when things were really bad. I just had to make things suck less.
I love that.
So from that little spark of being able to say, you know what, my muscles are hurting. I can't do anything for my joint pain, but I can feel that my muscles are hurting from not being used. Let me do a tiny bit so that I can treat that pain. That's something I can do. That's something I can do to make this moment suck less. And that ended up being the start of this really positive spiral, along with starting the medication and working with my team, to where I could start to again unlock that pleasure again and start to build this sense of being able to have control, but more than that, experience the pleasures of life again.
I've just written down a couple of notes with just what you've shared. So powerful. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like so many of us run away from our pain, which just amplifies what you're trying to get away from. We're not hardwired to walk confidently one step forward at a time towards our pleasure. Because it's scary, because we think we can't have it, it's going to get taken away from us. And I love, because that's like where I'm at now. It's like, I'm done feeling the pain, running from it. Doesn't mean I'm not going to do it anymore, but I am choosing, standing in my confidence, to welcome pleasure, to welcome joy, to be in charge of my life. And that is empowered self-leadership. And that's the shift. The pain's not going to go away.
Exactly.
It's not going to go away.
Yeah.
Honoring it, letting it be seen and heard. Like I tell my children, like a little 3 or 4-year-old throwing a temper tantrum, they just want to be seen and heard and held and loved. They don't want to be told to be quiet and go away, because for all those moms that have temper tantrums at the grocery stores, they don't go. Right? So you honor it, you hold the duality of both.
Yes.
You give them what they need, which is love, which is, I hear you. I know it fucking sucks.
Yes.
But what's one thing we can do right now? Like, and that's what I wrote. It's one step forward at a time. And whatever that one thing is, that's rewiring. I love, love, love what you just said. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And that's where mindfulness can start to come into play here, because the only reason in that really deep suck hole, the only reason I was able to understand that I had muscle pain and I had joint pain was because I was able to be mindful of my body and not completely run away from the pain, to actually experience the pain and determine what this pain meant. So, yeah.
So for people that are trying to wrap their head around mindfulness and deepen their mindfulness leadership, what's coming to me is to ask you to explain the difference between reacting and responding.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's stay in this example of the arthritis flare and having joint pain and muscle pain. Without mindfulness, without, examining the feelings, all you get is this big ball of pain. And our instinct is to avoid that pain and distract and just try to ignore it. You can't really, it's still in the room. You can't ignore it, but you try to look away from that pain. You try to distract by watching a movie, scrolling on your phone, listening to music, sleep if you can sleep. You're trying to avoid the pain, but in doing so, you can actually make it worse, because the thing you're doing to avoid can actually be causing pain as well. Whereas if you can look directly at it, in the case of physical pain, it's doing something like a body scan, where you're either, breaking your body down, starting with your toes and working your way all the way up to feel the different parts of your body, or having a more open awareness of trying to feel your whole body at once. In doing so, it's going to make you more aware of the pain, and that sucks. It sucks, but the only way for you to start to understand and respond to that pain in a way that can actually improve it is to experience it and know what's happening.
Yeah. And like, I know with me, sometimes you can put words to it. You can put, where in my body am I feeling it, or what emotions are coming up, because then you can kind of connect And you're right, like it's not going to go away, but you don't have to be afraid of it. And that's
exactly
where.
And there are sometimes things that you can do in the moment too, right?
Yeah.
Like in the example of, I was having a lot of pain in my triceps, the back of my arms.
Mm-hmm.
There's no joint in the back of my arm. It wasn't arthritis. It was pain from not moving. So I ended up doing like a 15-second plank because that kind of uses that muscle and a lot of other muscles. And that made that pain less. And it didn't create a lasting increase in my joint pain, a little bit in the short term, but it saved me in the long term a lot of pain.
I love it because you're basically short circuiting that story, because it takes 90 seconds for your body to register what you're feeling and to imprint it as something that continues to replay on autopilot. And if you can allow yourself to fully feel it for 90 seconds, and then go to do a completely different activity, maybe in a different room. I love that you said a plank. I love to tell people, like if you're brushing your teeth and your mind is yapping at you, go into another room and do some jumping jacks. Same thing. It's like you're short circuiting that story from imprinting and staying. And you're kind of like tricking your ego or your mind and keeping them busy, focused on something else. I love it.
Yeah. And then also doing things like breathing exercises where you can, extend your exhale to start to trigger the like rest and digest phase.
Mm-hmm.
So you're reducing your stress. And when I was doing those breathing exercises, I could actually feel the pain decreasing from like an 8 to a 7 or a 6, right? So the pain is still there. It's still intense. If I didn't have, pain medications in my system, I would be going and getting some. But the difference between an 8 and a 6 is the difference between functioning and not.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband has an autoimmune. He's had it for 4 years now. And the difference in his physical, mental, emotional well-being in the last 4 years, he's having to learn a lot of these things. And it's very humbling when you could do things that you can't do.
Yeah.
And maybe you have some of the tools, but you don't have all the tools. So I love that these are simple things that people can start to implement. And it's not a one and done. It's you can keep deepening it and you can keep extending it and swimming in it and feeling it and taking it where you need to.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And the mindfulness can permeate everything, your entire life if you let it, right? Mindful eating is another aspect of it that obviously as a dietitian, I talk about a lot.
We're on the same path because I was going to say, okay, so how does this impact eating? Because so many of us just eat on autopilot. Or we're at the dinner table and the TV's going and the phones are going and everybody's screaming and we don't even digest what we're eating and we're hungry 20 minutes later or we're over full.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'd love to hear how we can bring more mindfulness into our eating, really open up a more pleasurable experience in the moment, but just throughout your whole day as well.
Absolutely. So with mindful eating, I was realizing this recently. A lot of people talk about being mindful of their food choices in terms of thinking about what they're eating. But that's not really what mindful eating is. Mindful eating is about the experience of eating. It has nothing to do with your food choices necessarily. It's about when you are eating, actually experiencing the food, actually paying attention to your external and internal senses while you eat.
The pleasure.
The pleasure.
It's literally the difference between going to McDonald's or a Michelin 5-star restaurant. You could have the same meal. It's a whole different experience.
And while you're eating that McDonald's burger, you can still unlock the mindful eating. And that is the huge power of mindful eating. It doesn't matter what foods you're eating. You can still unlock maximum pleasure every time you eat.
So walk me through. Give me the experience the desired experience that people are missing. Kind of sink them into the moment a bit more.
Absolutely. So the classic introductory mindful eating experience is the raisin exercise.
The which one?
Raisin exercise.
Oh, I've not heard this.
Okay. So if you don't love raisins, after you do this, you might start to like raisins, because that's what happened to me. I didn't like raisins until I did the raisin exercise. I still don't like it in baked goods. They don't belong in baked goods. But on their own or in trail mix, I like them now. So in the raisin exercise, we start with a small edible food, something that won't melt in your hand because you're going to be handling it. You start with this thing and you imagine you are an alien who has just dropped onto planet Earth. You have never seen this thing or anything like it before. All you know is that it's called a raisin and you can eat it. All you know.
I'm just laughing because I'm so going to practice this with my kids.
Absolutely. So you look at this raisin, whether it's already in your hand or if it's sitting on a table, look at it. Look at how the light reflects off of it. Look at the shadows, the highlights, the color, the texture. Really engage your sense of sight. Then pick it up and engage your sense of touch. Roll it around between your fingers or place it in your palm and roll it around with your other hand. Really experience what are the textures on your hands, the bumps and the ridges, the stickiness, or is it a dry raisin? What is that texture in your hand? Bring it to your nose and breathe deeply, noticing all of the aromas and smells. Notice that your mouth has started to water as you're smelling it. And even while I'm talking through this, my mouth is watering, just imagining it. Bring it to your mouth and pause, really experiencing the anticipation that you're about to eat something. Place it on your tongue, but don't bite. Just notice the initial flavors. Roll it around in your mouth, engaging the sense of touch again. Then take a bite and notice the explosion of flavors. Notice how your tongue is moving it around in your mouth and most of the time avoids being bit. Notice when the urge to swallow arises and notice how your tongue has gathered the raisin into a ball to be ready to swallow. When you swallow, feel it move through your mouth and imagine it going down your esophagus and settling into your stomach.
I love it because you think about, I'm just looking at how some people I know eat, and it's, shove as much food as you can. And
it's that hand to mouth. Yeah.
It's the hand to mouth. And I love the word that you said, anticipation. It's like dating, dating versus getting married and being married for 25 years. The dating is the fun. It's getting to know, it's exploring. I love that word, anticipation. And I also love, and I never noticed this, the gathering into the center, ready to receive. And I zoned in on that because most of us do not know how to receive in any parts of our life. We hustle, we grab, we attach, we hurry. That slow, sensual, pleasurable receiving is the epicenter of joy in life. And it doesn't cost you anything to eat a raisin in 2 minutes or 2 seconds. Yeah. And that practicing of that receiving, that mindful receiving, carries over in so many other parts of your life.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
And so
beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
The raisin exercise, I mean, it literally can take 2 minutes to eat a singular raisin. You're not going to eat an entire meal like that. It would be very fun to do as a retreat and to literally spend the whole day eating. Although at a certain point you would get sick of it.
Yeah.
Because it's excessive.
And also, I will say it's because it's out of balance. And our greatest
Exactly.
potential as humans happens when we bring balance and harmony to things. So when you're rushing, you're out of balance. When you're going too slow, when you're rushing masculine action energy, too out of balance. Most of our world is too hustly, too action. When you're too laid back receiving, nothing's going to get done. You're still out of balance. So you're right. You do need that balance, that throttle back and forth, that beautiful partnership. Love it.
Exactly. Exactly. So what I typically recommend is your first bite, go as deep into that mindful moment as possible to set the stage for the meal.
Mm.
And then having deliberate mindful moments sprinkled through your meal. This doesn't need to be like at 1/4 of the way through your meal, make sure you pause. It doesn't have to be rigid or pre-designed, but more periodically noticing the fact that you are eating still. And what are you eating? What does it feel like? And paying attention to those internal senses of how does my body feel in this moment? Am I still hungry? Am I starting to get satisfied? How do I feel in my body right now?
I love, and I wrote this down, the first bite, go as deep as you can. I mean, you could just, that's a metaphor for life. Really.
Absolutely.
And then when you forget and you unconsciously start to skim the surface or multitask or get too busy, you pause and you go deep again. You sprinkle moments of deep reconnection, deep groundedness. Again, a metaphor for life that begins with food and how you serve yourself. Oh, this is such a good conversation.
And mindful eating, it's so positive in so many ways. So there's just the element that mindfulness helps you unlock the pleasure. And that is definitely not something to be minimized. I think as a culture, we have this idea that pleasure for pleasure's sake is bad somehow. And that has some sort of cultural roots that I don't feel like digging into. But allowing ourselves to experience pleasure for the sake of pleasure is so healing because I honestly think pleasure is a basic human need. And we can unlock that every single time we have anything to eat or drink.
Yeah, I would agree. It's actually one of my core values, pleasure.
Yeah.
And I agree. It is a basic need that we've turned off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And we are turning it on.
Yes, we are turning it on here. Mindful eating is also really powerful in that you can teach your intuition better with better data. So when we are distracted and not paying attention, our unconscious mind doesn't always get all of the information, right? Our unconscious mind is our pattern seeking behavior of seeing clouds in the sky, but also knowing that, rain is coming. You go outside and you can just feel that it's about to rain.
Mm-hmm.
That's because we have experienced that sensation just before rain many times in our life. And our unconscious mind, our intuition, knows that it's about to start raining. When we eat mindfully, our intuition is better able to recognize the patterns of what foods help us feel good.
Yeah, in a positive way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the objections that people have with intuitive eating is this idea of if I eat whatever I want, then I will only eat pizza and ice cream for the rest of my life. Which we've already talked about.
You might eat for 3 days straight.
I doubt you would even do it for 3 days straight. Honestly, the thrill of rebellion, I don't think could carry you through for 3 days. Because that's all it would be at that point is just the feeling of rebelling against the rules that you've taken in from wherever they came from. An actual intuitive approach would be to find that balance, because that balance is what feels good, right? You have pizza and ice cream
Your
and
body
chips.
speaks to stay in balance too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, if you're connected with your intuition, you have that night of pizza and drinks and ice cream and everything for supper. The next day, you're going to be craving something light and fresh to restore balance to your
Yeah.
body.
So looking back
Yeah.
on where you are today,
Yes.
what would you have told your younger self? What would you tell people that are maybe 5 or 10 years behind you in your journey?
Mm-hmm.
What inspiration would you like to pay forward and share?
The biggest benefits that I got were actually things I learned during a mental health journey. And so this again goes to the idea that all of these are skills and modes of being that we can carry through across our entire life, whether we're talking about personal health or business or anything.
Mm.
A lot of these skills in terms of the mindfulness, body scans, I actually learned those in a mental health context. And that's something that I wish I had known about mindfulness, about doing body scans, about all of this idea of balance when I was a teenager, before I had any of these issues, because I think it would have helped me find that balance point a lot sooner. But yeah, the ideas around mindfulness and going deep into that, and body scans and journaling, like really learning how to journal, those were the things that I found most helpful and that I encourage people to do as well.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
hearing when you say that? It's a reclaiming of your self-leadership, not
Mhm.
outsourcing what you were taught based on this is how it is or how I'm supposed to do
Yeah.
things. It's using that intuition and the mindfulness to stop from reacting on autopilot, to choose how to respond, to bring your leadership inside
Mhm.
and say, wait, I don't want to do this. I want to do this. It's a reclaiming of your leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that doesn't mean that we ignore what we learn from other people. It doesn't mean that we ignore nutrition science. It means that first and foremost, it comes from a place of how does this feel in my body?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And choosing how to step forward from an empowered place versus a
Yeah.
disempowered place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you have a way to people connect with you. I know you've got a free
Yeah.
guide you've created. I'd love to
Yes.
hear what's inside of it and how can people connect with you, because this is like such a valuable conversation. Like same with me. I know when I was going through my bulimia, it it was a mental health reset. I seeked out help, and it was all the mind repattering that helped me
Yeah.
course correct. So I echo what you say, 1,000%. And I'd love to hear what you've got for our
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah. So I actually just put together the bare minimum health plan, which is designed for people who are stressed out, exhausted, or in pain and don't have the capacity to do all of the things that they feel like they should be doing. It's about what are the core things that will
Mm,
have the biggest impact at helping you manage right now and
mhm.
start to build and spiral up out of this moment that sucks.
Thank you. That
So,
is so important.
yeah, absolutely. So, I have that available on my website. I know you mentioned the link will be in the description, but it's samanthaholmgren.ca/plan. You can get the
Perfect.
spelling in the link because I don't feel like spelling my name out right now.
No, no, no. All good. So, in closing here, what is one word that you would like to pay forward to your audience today?
The word that always comes back around to me is mindfulness, mindful. And that a second place would be balance. Very close second place. Yeah.
Love it. The whole time we were talking and in our pre-interview, I kept hearing the words intent. My business is called Live with Intent. So, you know, that sort of weaves through life, but really it's intentional. It's mindful,
Yes.
purposeful. It's that pause.
Yes, the
And
power of the pause.
power, I was just going to say that's where your power is. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your message of inspiration and wisdom. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to share this space with you. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, all of Samantha's contact information will be in the description below this video. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Samantha, and we'll be happy to get back to you. Thank you so much, my dear. This has been lovely.
Thank you so much for having and for hosting this wonderful conversation.